So hello. Um, I'm back and I wanted to share something with you. It's kind of a little scary. So I joined this dating app called Hinge under the advice of a college friend. She was like, "Hey, try web this dating site called Hinge." And I was like, "Okay." So I try it and I meet this guy, and let's just call him Zip Ties. Let's call him Zip Ties. So I met him on there, and we have been communicating on the dating app probably for about 3 weeks. And he was like, "Hey, can I give you my number and you give me a call? Because I really, want to talk to you and get to know you better, further, and more extensive off of the site." So I said, "Okay, no problem." So he gave me his number, and I'm very, very slow to call people. I don't, I don't know why. I mean, I really do want to find somebody, but I don't know. I'm really slow to call. So, anyways, it probably was about 3 or 4 days. And then I'm like, "Hey, I need to call this guy." So I call him. He doesn't answer the phone. But he immediately like texts me and says, "Hi, is this so and so from the dating site?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you to call me. I am at work. I'm going to call you in a few." And I said, "Okay." So he keeps his word. Like 20 minutes goes by, he calls me. He's like, "Hi, I'm at my part-time third job." I'm like, "Third job? You have three jobs?" He's like, "Yeah." So he was like, "But this third job is kind of temporary unless I want to make it permanent, but I'm not sure." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, I understand, getting your coins, getting your bag, I'm all for it." So I understand. I was like, "But will you really have time to date?" Because he was in DC and I'm here in Richmond, Virginia. And so I'm like, it's a little ways. So, are you going to be able to, deal with long distance and you're working all those jobs? It's kind of hard. I understand if you're not. And he's like, "Listen, it might be that you have to come to me more than I come to you, but, I can make it work." And I was like, "Okay." In the back of my head, I'm like, me coming to him more than, it wasn't ideal, but I was like, "Okay." So we were talking, and he said, "Hey, because if you come here, I'll make it worth it." And I was like, "Okay." So we kept talking, and then he brought it up again, "Because if you come here, you won't regret it." And I was like, "Okay." And then when he says it the third time, I'm finally like, "Okay, why won't I regret it? Why will I love it? Why would it be a good decision? Like, what are we talking about here?" He was like, "You know." And I was like, "No, I don't." I'm thinking, my naivete. I'm really thinking he's talking about showing me a good time. It's like taking me out, whining and dining me. Child, I mean, he never really spelt it out, but I think he was really talking about sex. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about that for. It's like the furthest thing on my mind. So, okay, fast forward. So we're talking and we're just talking about different things and, what he likes to do, what I like to do. He was telling me about what he does in his other jobs, blah blah blah. Well, let me speed it up. So he says, "Hey, I just want you to know I'm really not in to put my hands on a woman. I don't put my hands on a woman. I don't play that. I don't do none of that." He was like, "But I really want to know, are you into, like, when it comes to sexual activity, are you into choking and handcuffs and smacking and stuff?" And I was like, "No, no, I'm not." And I mean, if you could have seen my face, I was so taken aback. I mean, thank goodness we weren't video messaging because I was really taken aback. I was like, "What? What?" Because it was a very strange question to me. I mean, I can see people asking that if you get further along and you're maybe trying to take your relationship to the next stage, because you do need to ask before you try to do any of those things. But it was just like our first phone conversation. And when we were messaging on the app, it was very surface level. So I'm like, I was taken aback, but I was like, at least he asked. And I was like, "No, I'm not into that at all. No, 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 no. I don't do that." And he was like, "Oh, I do that." And I was like, "Oh, I'm probably not your girl then." Because, I don't do that. Not even when I'm comfortable with somebody. I ain't never been that comfortable. I don't want you to try to choke me and slip up and be choking me for real. I just don't play those types of games. Don't put your hand around my neck. I don't like that. Don't do that. Okay. So he was like, oh, okay. I mean, if we get to that point, I might have to coax you into it. But I really like you, so I can just keep going for now. So I'm on the phone, like, keep going for now. This probably gonna be our last conversation, cause I really don't think you have time for me, and you into some stuff I'm not into. You can't coax me into nothing. You can't never coax me into choking me. You can't coax me into that. Okay, so but we continue to talk on the phone, right? So he says, "Hey, I'm about transparency," and I was like, "Me too." He was like, "Yeah, you said that. That's what I liked about you. You seem real sincere." He was like, "So let me have you look up a date." I said, "Okay." So he tells me a date. I don't want y'all to look up the date because I don't want the person business and they come back and get me. But he told me to look up this particular date. Okay. And he tells me the full date and year and which um publication to look it up in, and I look it up and he says, read the article, I'll wait. Honey, in the article it goes on to talk about this crime in which three people had kidnapped a business owner, and they kidnapped him for ransom. How they had his zip tied his legs and his ankles and his hands and wrists. They had duct taped his mouth. They had blindfolded him. They had him laying on his stomach face down on the back seat of the car, and that they were holding him for ransom. He was a business owner, and they had reached out to, I guess, his brother, saying, if you want him back alive, then you will give us $300,000. Okay. Now, the brother had scrounged up 18, and they were like, They had gotten to 18, but they were like, that's not enough. So if you want him, you need to come up with some more money. So it was an ongoing thing. Well, apparently, instead of just having him somewhere and staying put, I don't know if they were coming back from getting the money or what, but they apparently were speeding and not a tail light. It was like they were speeding and something was wrong. So they happened to speed by a police officer, and they got pulled over, and then that's when they were discovered. Like it was like a little mini chase, and then that's when they were discovered, and the man was discovered and all of that stuff. They thought he was dead. In the article, the deputy says, like, I thought he was dead, whatever, but then he wasn't. He was just barely. Anyway, honey, long story short, and then somebody snitched on somebody, and then, went to jail. He was in jail for like 14. Listen, the moral of the story is no, 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 no. And I believe in rehabilitation, and I believe he has done his time, and I believe he should be able to transition back into society. I would not think twice about working with him, having a business with him, or anything. I don't have anything. But let me just tell you, remember he said, do you mind? I like this choking and handcuffing and all that. You already did that when you was kidnapping somebody. See, this is what I'm saying. You could have a flashback to that. You could have PTSD to that. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. You have already shown that you will do that and then ask for ransom. Absolutely not. And I just want y'all to know, these are the type of people I come in contact with. This is what I'm having to go through in my process of being available so that my husband can find me. This is what's going on. And he was like, now that you have read all that, I asked him, I said, were you going to kill the man? He said, no, we just wanted the money. That's what he said. Hey, that very well might be the truth, but we never know. We never know, because it could have been that he was feeling that way. But when you don't commit crimes by yourself, you don't have any control over what the other two people do. And what if they would have gotten frustrated that they were only getting $18,000? You know what I mean? That's 6,000 a piece. That's not what they were looking for. They were looking for 100,000 a piece. And what if things just would have went left, and then it could have ended up um being somebody, that was deceased, in the process. So he says that he doesn't talk to the one who snitched, but the one who did not snitch, him and that person are still friends. And so, you know, he says he's not about a life of crime. That's why he works so much. He was also telling me that if we hit it off, he wouldn't have to work so many jobs because he really wouldn't need 2.5 streams of income, because he could count on my stream of income and then his, and then we could spend more time together. And I said, excuse me, um, just because you're in a relationship with anybody, how are you counting on their income? Doesn't mean you're gonna move in together. He was like, yeah, that's what you do when you're grown and you're dating, you move in together. So apparently he's been out of jail for a year and a half, and he met somebody within 2 months of being out, and they lived together. And so him and her just broke up five months ago. And so that's why he's working so much, because now he's having to take care of all the bills by himself. But he's used to living with people. So that there's that. Um, so we just weren't compatible in any sort of way, because I don't do that. I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but I definitely wouldn't do it while you just started going with somebody. We would have to be, we were engaged and we were saving up, and for a wedding, and for our dream home, because I'm already in a home, and hopefully he would have a home, and we were just trying to consolidate because we were going to get our dream home. I mean, there are reasons why you do it, but it would have to be further along, not just because you just started dating somebody and start going with them, and we're grown, and that's what grown people do. Because I've been grown a long time, and that's just not what I do, and that's not what my friends do, so I'm confused. But um yeah, that's that's what happened with that. So, only these things happen to me. I feel if they've happened to you, let me know, share your story, so we can be in a support group together. I would appreciate it. But I just had to tell y'all about zip ties. Leave your comments, concerns, questions. I appreciate all of it, your input, advice, everything. Y'all continue to pray for your girl. All right, talk to you later.